What's going on, everybody? Welcome. This is episode 3 of the KoppsCast. Hope you're all having a good Thursday. Hope you're all doing well. If you're coming in and you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Kopps. I primarily do RPGs on here, play a variety of other stuff. But recently just started up this little talk show podcast thing. Try to give some highlight to some content creators, musicians, folks of various backgrounds. Try to give folks all the love on here. Arcade, Millhouse, Jordan, good to see you. Yeah, we got a real special show for you this evening. We have a fine gentleman here who does this professionally, unlike me, who just is trying to do this to, like I said, share the love around. But I think this will be a really good chat. I've known this guy for a little while now. Been doing some freelance design stuff for him for a bit, and did some stuff for him recently, and just asked him, if he wouldn't mind jumping on, and he was really cool about it. So anyway, why don't we bring him out? Hey, folks, I'll give you none other than CM Roberts. CM. How you doing, man?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Really appreciate you jumping in on this. It's I know your schedule is absolutely crazy, but it seriously means a lot for you to come in and come chat with us. So.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and thank you for the stuff you've done for me in the past as well. And also, I mean, it is nice when you got the studio, when I've got a studio in my house, like it makes it a little easier. When I'm like, yeah, you're like, are you around at 7 on Thursday? And it's not, as long as, yes, I can give you 7 on Thursday. I don't have to give you 6. I don't have to leave the house. I don't have to plan anything. I don't have to do anything. I just have to come downstairs at 7, and I can be here and we can chat. So it's easy for me, and I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, anytime, my man. So I guess for just stardom, how's things been with you during this wild and crazy time in the world? It's definitely. Some of the worst times for us right now, but we're making do with it. But how are you doing? How's the fam? Hopefully everyone's all in good health.
Yeah, everybody's good. I mean, like day to day, it's been good. I mean, I'm really exceptionally fortunate that my job at Sirius has been unaffected. I should say uninterrupted. It's been affected greatly because we're doing the shows from home now. And so, we've just been getting used to me and Norton and the crew doing things remotely, which we had done a couple of times because of me traveling, but never every day for months. But now it's just kind of become, normal for what we do in the morning. So, I mean, I'm super lucky that I still have that. And like I said, having a studio that I built, I built this a couple years ago when we moved in. So, this made things easier as well. It's just like the big picture stuff, as long as I just stay in the day to day, today was good, everybody's healthy, then we're all good. When you start thinking about the big picture in the world at large and the amount of people that are being affected by this, both in terms of health and the economy, that's when you start to go crazy. But in the meantime, today, in my little bubble that I live in, everything's great.
Yeah, man, it's awesome that, like you said, you have your studio that you built, just being able to do all that from home, super convenient. I mean, I'm also fortunate enough where I can have the ability to work remote. The company I work for, I mean, or my design team specifically, we've mostly been remote anyway because we were waiting on some office renovations. So I was already just hanging back anyway and waiting in the meantime, and then all this went down. I was like, well, this doesn't really change much. Like I maybe went in one day a week, but yeah, once everything went down and it's crazy, man. Like, you never could have imagined anything like this happening, and here we are. But yeah, it's awesome that everyone's doing good on your end, and you're still able to put out all the content that you are. So yeah.
Yeah. It's been really good. Yeah, putting out the amount of content is good, and yeah, keeping everybody healthy, especially at the beginning when there's a little more of that paranoia. It was like, making sure you were careful every time you left the house and everything. And still, I mean, I'm still more paranoid, I think, than most people. I'm still wiping every single thing that comes into my house. Everything gets wiped down with Lysol.
Mhm.
Today, I got a Costco membership because my wife texted me from upstairs while the morning show was on.
Mhm.
Hey, Costco has big packs of wipes available, but you can only order them online if you're a member. I was like, well, buy a membership. So we got that, and we got wipes coming. So yeah, we're managing. Everything's
Mhm.
good. We're just, adapting. We're adapting.
Right. And I mean, I know you, like, from when all the chaos was starting. I remember, like, watching one of your weekly videos, your weekly live videos, and you just had like the rolls of toilet paper on the counter, so you were like fairly you're like, I'm ready for this. I'm good to go.
Yeah, that was my toilet paper clout. That's when I was like, hey everybody, guess what I got? You got your, I don't know, your fancy sneakers, your limited edition this, or whatever you're showing off with is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I said the first time I got on live, it was gonna be stacks of fresh rolls of toilet paper, just so everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I am good.
For sure.
But we've gone through it. They're not here anymore. We got through them. They're gone.
For sure. So I guess before I dive full into, because I had like a bunch of questions and stuff regarding like your career, like podcasts, your time in WWE and stuff. Before I get into that, guess I just let the chat know. It's going to be a bit on the shorter side today, but towards the end, Sam, if you're cool with it, figure we'll leave it open for like a Q&A. So
yeah.
if there's anything I don't ask and there's something that like anyone has that they want to add to it, to everyone in the chat, if you use go to the channel points and use highlight my message, please I'll suggest using that at the end during that time. So then I'll try not to miss that. So, but yeah. So I guess we'll go in. So I guess first thing, because you have a couple monikers. You call yourself the last professional broadcaster. That's one of them.
It's not just me calling myself that. The world at large knows me as the last professional broadcaster.
Of course. How'd you come up with that?
So, it was actually several years ago when I was trying to I was trying to craft this career for myself, and everywhere I went, people were like, "Well, radio's dead. Well, what radio's dead? Radio's dead. Radio's
Mm-hmm.
dead. What are you doing? Radio's dead. Like, there's no future in it. Blah blah blah." And I was like, I mean, it's kind of tough logic to beat, but still, this is my chosen career path, so we're gonna have to get past this radio's dead thing.
Right.
And I was looking around, and I was like, okay. I was like, well, but like, entertainment is still alive, and audio and video. But I was like, the big podcasters at the moment were like comedians, and it's like, well, why is everybody that does this? It's either like a comedian who does a podcast, or like on Sirius, it was like an actor who did a radio show, or a musician that did, this sort of YouTube show or whatever it was. I was like, what happened to like people who just did this? Like the people who are really good at this just do this. I mean, but and it's the same with anything. Like if your specialty is something, hopefully you're better at it than somebody who just does that on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, that's what I need to zero in on. So I said professional broadcaster. I was like, nobody's a professional broadcaster anymore. Let me be a professional broadcaster. And then the thing is, like, in my head, I'm going, well, but broadcasting, like, radio's dead. So what do you want to be a professional broadcaster for? And it's like, well, guess what? I'm the last one. And I thought about it. I was like, well, nobody younger than me can take claim to it. There are people my age or older that might be like, hey, I'm a professional broadcaster. And I'm like, yeah, you're not the last one, though. I'm the last one. The line ends here. And I feel confident enough that I can draw the line in cement and say that there are no more. So if, you're going to school right now for broadcasting and your goal is to be a professional broadcaster, I'm sorry. There is already a last one, and it's me. And, I'll be dead at some point, and there will be no more professional broadcasters.
Exactly.
You know?
It's a great title, though. I love it.
Yeah, and it also sounded good to me. So I was like, I'm going to not stop saying it ever.
So you had that before?
And and it's been like really, really fun when I go into like professional settings. Like when I started with WWE, and and Renee Young was like, we were like getting ready for the kickoff show, and she was like, so should I just plug like Jim Norton and Sam Roberts, Sirius XM? I'm like, yep. And can you please, can you call me the last professional broadcaster? And she like looked up. She was like, are you joking? I was like, no, I'm not joking. And she was like, all right, well then I'll call you the last professional broadcaster. Because once you can get it once they say that on the first WWE show, now it's there. Now it's true. Now it's just what we do.
It's fact,
Yeah. You get it in that once, and then you're good.
Yeah, exactly, man. And then you also came up with your Not Sam brand. Could I say? Did you come up with that like around the same time too, or have you always like gone by that, or?
No, yeah. Everybody tries to figure out like who got it on Twitter first, this person or you. I had Not Sam way before Twitter. Not Sam was like the first thing that I had. I think I was probably like 19, 20, something like that, when I created notsam.com, and it was I was in college, and it was just kind of like a sort of stupid, content-y, kind of goofy writing website, whatever. It was just a creative outlet. Right. And so I just that's where I would go to be creative. I'd write a movie review, or I'd talk about how, this celebrity sucks, or whatever it was. And then when I started doing college radio, I was like, I'll do Not Sam Radio, because I have notsam.com and the whole thing will work. And really that was just because I wanted something really simple. I wanted something that people would remember. And sam.com was obviously taken already. And then it just notsam.com popped into my head. And I was like, yeah, that could be interesting. And then just Not Sam, even though you don't get it, even it doesn't make sense, there's just something about the word Not Sam that is memorable. Oh, you mean and to the point where you go, Sam, like Sam, not Sam. Oh yeah. And then you remember it.
Yeah.
It's
short and simple. I mean, short and simple works. I mean that's why I just for like my for my nickname B Kopps, that's short and simple. Like that works. Everyone at my first job, they were all calling me that. I was mostly called either B Cop or whatever through high school. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna stick with that for everything now.
That's what people like calling you anyway. So you might as well do a thing that is proven that people like calling you that.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than just having trying to think of something clever and then having it like overly long for just the sake of it, kind of thing. And but no, that's sweet, man. And speaking of, because you mentioned college, so you went to Syracuse, right?
Yes.
And did you intend to go in for broadcasting, or did you have was that more of a backup thing, or what was your goal for when you were going? I
didn't even go for broadcasting, and I didn't graduate for broadcasting. At no point did I study broadcasting, but I did. But Syracuse is a really good broadcasting school, the best broadcasting school. So people assume that I went to Syracuse. It must be from Newhouse. And I'm like, okay, sure. If that's what you think. All right. No, I went to Syracuse. At first I wanted to study film. Okay. And Newhouse is this amazing communication school in Syracuse. I mean, it's just got so many graduates. Really ironically, from way more from the world of broadcasting than film. Tons of sportscasters. I mean, like Dick Clark, Bob Costas, everybody went to Syracuse. So that was my goal. But I didn't get into Newhouse when I applied, but they let me into the College of Arts and Sciences, which is just kind of like the general university. And it was like, okay, yeah, I'll go there. This is great. Syracuse is a great school regardless. And they have this inter-school system where if you can get a 3.5 GPA, you can transfer into Newhouse. And it's like, there's no application. It's just like, if you have a 3.5 GPA and you want to go to Newhouse, you can go to Newhouse. And I was like, great, I get a 3.5 GPA. But then, like, once I was there, I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a 3.5 GPA. I don't think that's going to happen. That's not in the cards for me right now. So I realized that there was another school within Syracuse, and it's the College of Visual Performing Arts, VPA. And that was actually a film school anyway. Like, that was actually a school you could go to and study film and use, like, celluloid film, make short films. They taught you from an artistic end how to be a filmmaker. And I was like, okay, well, that's more filmmaking than Newhouse was anyway. And you don't need a 3.5 GPA to get into visual performing arts. You just need to want to get into visual performing arts. I was like, that's for me. But I had transferred in a year after I had already started. So I was going to have to spend a 5th year in Syracuse in order to graduate with that film degree, which I was like, all right, well, it is what it is. But the summer after my 3rd year of school, I got my Opie and Anthony internship. And by then I had kind of fallen in love with radio completely. I'd been doing college radio a ton, and like, it was like, this is clearly what I love. I'd already been a fan, obviously, but I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I got my internship, and it went really well, to the point that they were like, wow, it sucks that you're going back to Syracuse. Otherwise, we would invite you back. And I was like, I should probably drop out of school, right? And they're like, this is a free job. I don't know if you should drop out of school. But I was like, I got to think of something. Because I'm sitting there going like, okay. I'm like, well, if I go back to school, I can go, and then every time I have a break, I can come back and try to work for free, and just keep fresh in their minds. But I was like, but I can maybe, if I'm really working hard at it and the timing works out for me, if I'm lucky and I work hard, I could pull that off for 1 year. There's no way I'm doing that you can't do it for 2 years. Time just moves on.
Right.
So I went that summer, I started going through the course catalog, and I was finding all the classes that I had already taken. And I was like, what can I make a major out of in 2 semesters based on what I've already taken, that I can leave Syracuse after 2 semesters instead of 4? And I realized that I had taken a ton of sociology classes in that first year before I had gone to film school. And I was like, wait, and I'm adding up all the credits, and I'm like, I think I can pull off a sociology major in 1 year. And so immediately I just was like on the computer. It was like a month before I was going back to school. I was dropping every single class that I'd registered for. It was like, all the like 2nd and 3rd year film classes. I was like, drop. I was signing up for all the sociology classes. And I was like, yeah, mathematically this will work. I was going through my course catalog. I was like, And so I went back. I took all the sociology classes. I didn't even talk to my advisor midway through the semester. Or after the first semester, midway through that school year, I went to my advisor and I was like, hey, man, look, I need you to sign this paper that says I'm not in visual performing arts anymore. I have not gone to any of the classes we agreed that I would be going to. I went to all sociology classes. I'm getting a sociology degree. And he was like, annoyed. He was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, I need to go. I need to get out of here. I need to go. Yeah. So he's like, fine, whatever. And he signed the thing. And in the meantime, I stuck to the plan. Any time that I had more than a 3-day weekend, so any week that I had more than 1 day off, if I had 2 days off or more, I would drive back to New York, and I would just show up and volunteer work at Opie and Anthony for the whole year. And then vacations, I was there the whole time. So spring break, Christmas break, whatever. Any break, I was there the whole time. And then anytime I had a Monday or a Friday and Thursday off or whatever it was, I would be there, doing Opie and Anthony. I mean, I remember I took my last final. I drove right back to New York, did a week volunteering, working at Opie and Anthony, and then right after the show on Friday, drove back to Syracuse so I could go to my graduation, and then right after graduation, drove back to New York, working for free for the radio show. But yeah, so that's.
But it all paid off for you, though.
Yes, Yes, that's the long story of what I did at Syracuse.
Cool. Yeah, and you, speaking of your internship, because you started in 2005, about
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
so
hmm
interned on Opie and Anthony, eventually worked your way up to you were a producer of the show, and kept going from that. You ended up doing your own weekly live show, and then eventually getting your own show, the Sam Roberts Show. How was that whole process of all the work, like really grinding to get to that point?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was something that I wanted to do from the beginning, was host a show, and I was really, really vocal about it from the beginning. And I would take any opportunity that was afforded to me. And I mean, Opie specifically was really, really good to me about allowing me the opportunities to get it. And some of these, and it was almost, some of it I think was just to see, like, how much does he really want an opportunity? Like, do you want an opportunity enough that you'd come in here and host a show from midnight to 3 a.m. on a Saturday? Like, yeah, yes. How about, okay, you've done that. Like, how about now we'll give you every week, but it's going to be Saturday from 9 to midnight. Will you give up your Saturday nights? Yeah, of course I'll give up my Saturday nights. Will you give up your Sunday afternoons? Of course I'll give up my Sunday afternoons.
Mm-hmm.
And like, really slowly over the course of over a decade, it was like, little steps, to the point where I was still working with O&A, but they stopped working on Fridays. And so I started doing a Friday afternoon show. And at that point, really telling everybody, like, you guys have to know that my goal is to move on and do my own thing. I love being associated with you guys, but that's why I'm here. And eventually, Sirius came to me and they were like, we see what you're doing and we want to try something. We're ready to try something. And it took several months to, come up with a show and a game plan and how I would exit off of Opie and Anthony and Opie and Jimmy or whatever it was at the time. And yeah, and that's how Sam Roberts Show started, as kind of, branching off of Opie and Anthony and starting my own thing.
Cool, man. Yeah, and you've just been absolutely killing it on there, just working your way up. I mean, that was when you were just doing like your solo show for a while. That was kind of like when I discovered you. It was mostly from the podcast, because I didn't really listen to it. I don't have Sirius. I didn't really listen to it, but I think I was listening to Jamie Joss's podcast, and he had you on as a guest, and I was like, all right, so then I subbed to the podcast, and then found the YouTube channel, and then really just loved your content from there. And you had a plethora of like different celebrities, wrestlers. The one that always sticks out in my mind though was when you had Tommy Wiseau on the show. How was meeting Tommy? Because believe it or not, I actually met him one time too. It was during a midnight screening at a Boston showing of The Room, and I was up on stage and I was basically throwing an empty water bottle around with Greg Sestero, and and you basically had to like throw it back and forth like 20 times, and you get like free. I don't even remember. I just wanted to do that for laughs, and of course Tommy's giving like his commentary over it, and but what was it like having him on, and between him and what other guests have you had on that were like most memorable to you?
I mean, the Tommy thing is one of my favorite things I've ever done. It's one of those things that, like, we worked so hard on. It was me, it was Roland, who's our talent booker at SiriusXM. It was a lot of different moving parts, and you're working with Tommy, and like we're talking to his assistant, but the way his assistant writes emails, it really seems like it might just be Tommy working under a different name, and all this weirdness. And we're like, okay, you can come whatever time you are. Okay, does this time work for you? Does that time work for you? And it's like, please, like, okay, I think we got him. I really think we got him. And then I brought in my friends Nicole Ryan, who's on the Morning Mashup, and DJ Who Kid, who are like two polar opposites, and also both polar opposites from me, and also neither of them knew anything about Tommy Wiseau. And I decided not to smarten them up at all. I wanted to just inject them into this world, and I'm sitting there like so excited. I brought extra cameras into the studio, set everything up. I was like, everything's got to be perfect. And I mean, when he came in, and he was just, and I was obsessed with the room. I've been obsessed with the room for a long time. And when Tommy came in, and he was just as Tommy can be, I mean, I was blown away. I just loved every minute. I had the time of my life. And then, like right after the interview, I left the studio because a lot of times, I don't know, I like to, I left the studio, I went to the bathroom, did whatever. And I came back in, and I mean, I had given enough time that the room could kind of clear out, but Tommy and everybody was still in there. And I was like, what's going on in there? And I went back in, and Tommy was like, oh, thank you, Sam. I was like, yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll see you later, bud. And he was like, oh, do you want me to bless you? And I was like, huh? He was like, do you want me to bless you? I was like, yeah, of course. And he took out, I don't have this dog tag. This is the football that he signed.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Yeah, the football, I got the Blu-ray over there. That's not signed by Tommy, the poster behind me. Oh, you can't see the poster in this camera angle. There's a disaster artist documentary or book poster that's signed by Greg Sestero behind me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he's like, you want me to bless you? I was like, yeah, I mean, yes. And he took out this Tommy Wiseau dog tag, and he literally crossed me, and then he put it around my neck, and I bowed. I was like, thank you, Tommy. Thank you for doing that.
He's such an interesting character.
Yeah.
So that always sticks out in my mind as like one of my favorite interviews ever. Like shit, like I'll just go back and rewatch that one like here and there, just like of how like hilarious he is in that like.
Like I so badly want to get him in here, like in my Not Sam studio now. Greg's been here. Like I've known Greg now.
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
Like I like Greg and I, are buddies, but and I've talked to him too. I'm like, Greg, like we gotta get Tommy in here, and Greg is like, no, we do have to get Tommy in here. You're right, we will. But
soon.
Yeah, that's my pipe dream is to get Tommy Wiseau in here, and also just because like having people in this studio, it's this whole other level where like it's my house. Like they come in and my wife's here with my kids, and she's like, oh hey, how's it going? Oh, we're just gonna go downstairs, and it's the idea that Tommy Wiseau could invade my private life so that we could do a show is so hilarious to me that it like now that's what I want.
Goals for post-pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you can get him to even like video in,
Honestly,
I feel like he'd be able to do that. Maybe
if he said, "Look, I know that there's a pandemic going on, but if you're cool, I'm cool. Only thing is, I don't wear masks. But if you're cool, I'm cool." I'd be like, "All right, Tommy, come over. Let's do
I'll make an exception just for you."
yeah, let's roll it, Tommy. Let's roll the dice. Let's do it.
So, so you had the Sam Roberts show. Eventually, partnered up with Jim Norton. So you have the Jim and Sam show. That's what you're still have going on right now. You've been doing that for a couple years now, I think.
Yeah.
Was that just like something they pitched to you, and then you just decided to go with that, or did you want to keep like the solo show? But
it was, I've always really liked Jim, and Jim did the solo show a bunch, and like I always obviously I knew Jim from Opie and Anthony and everything, but just I've always enjoyed doing radio with Jim and being around Jim. And yeah, the Sirius again came to me and they were like, look, Jim had called me. He was like, hey, what do you think of maybe doing something together, like just to see, if we enjoy it? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm always down to try stuff. And then Sirius was like, look, Jim is going to be leaving the morning show, but we want him to have a co-host. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'm like, yeah, that would be fun. It'd be a bigger show. It'd be doing what I'm doing now, and then getting to combine that with what Jim is doing now, and like making a a Megatron of shows. I'm like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And so, yeah, Jim and I had a few conversations about what we both wanted to do and everything, and tried it out a couple of times, and we were like, yeah, this seems really, really natural. So let's, yeah, do this. And it really does feel like a very sort of natural, good evolution um, from everything.
Right. I really love the chemistry you guys have on that show too. Like,
Oh, thanks, man.
it's always I don't know, like, even like a lot of some of the bickering back and forth on like some things. It's just it has me laughing like really hard. So it's always a good watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's nice, like, that we can do that. You know, that we can bicker back and forth on stuff sometimes, and there's no real tension.
Right.
Like, we actually like each other, which, you know, you can't really take for granted in creative spaces, as I'm sure you know.
Exactly. So I guess I'll move on to your YouTube channel, Not Sam. You mostly started out putting out like a lot of wrestling interviews, just like from, I'm sure, from like the big like live events or the WrestleMania weekend, stuff like that. Until eventually you ended up doing the Sam Roberts Now show, which you do twice a week, I think, live, or once a week live. Does it vary, I guess?
It does vary. I think I always do it Friday nights. And I was doing a couple more, and like when The Last Dance was on, I was jumping on every Monday and doing a live thing. But I kind of like the idea of keeping it live every Friday night, once a week, unless there's something huge that I really want to jump on and talk about. And then I have some other shows now that I'm going to start sprinkling in that are not live shows. So it's not just a Sam Roberts Now live show channel.
Right.
It's a full, flushed out Not Sam channel. And every Friday night we can get together and do our Sam Roberts Now nonsense.
It's really cool to see, like, you know, how I mean, you're constantly putting out more and more and more content. Like, it's hard to, you know, imagine like how much free time you actually have. Like, especially like doing the live, like you have your daily show, you have this live show now, the wrestling podcast. Like, there's just so much like on your plate. Like, it's amazing, you know, to see you like putting out all this content. But I guess how tough has it become at this point? Like, like
Well,
adding
I
that
mean,
in.
I like it. So it's like it's hard to complain. I certainly it's like at night I'm exhausted, and you know the only hard part is that I have ideas for stuff that I want to do, and I don't get to it because there's this other idea that I want to do too, and there's, you know what I mean. That's the only tough part. I just feel like YouTube and the internet in general is just such this amazing tool to be able to push content out there and just to be able to create. Like, I just enjoy the creation process so much. It's not so much, you know, gathering up as much audience as you can or do. I just like creating, and the part that I like when stuff obviously gets a huge audience, but that's because I like knowing that I've created something that's connected with people. And so I think just having this space, and especially like now that I got this studio and everything, it's like, why not just keep creating and keep doing stuff, and you know, if there's something that's in my head that I'm like, oh, that would be cool to do, you know, why not do a version of it? Like, why wait on figuring out how this person can, like, I can just do it. You know, I started doing a 90 Day Fiance after show. I'm sitting there like, I love talking about 90 Day Fiance. Some people love it. Some people hate it. What if I just did a 90 Day Fiance after show? Why not? Like, you know, I enjoy it, and the people that enjoy it. So let's do that. And yeah, so I wouldn't, it's not that it's difficult, because it's also tasks that I put on myself. Like, I could just say, well, I'm not doing anything on YouTube anymore. And, you know, it's not like Fred Google would call me and say, like, we had an agreement about how many YouTube shows you would do. You know, I truly enjoy the creation process of it.
Yeah, man. You know, I expect you mentioned, you know, because you have your after show reaction videos that you've been doing, or live streams you've been doing. I really liked your Last Dance one, which I really love that series.
It's so good.
It's amazing how they had all this footage that were just like locked away somewhere, and then they just like pulled it out, and it looks like it's just nuts. And just seeing like, you know, how over the top MJ was, especially like during that period of time, and
and the hours that they must have gone through when Steve Kerr is telling the story where he goes, yeah, MJ looked at me and he said, like, he was mumbling his words so nobody could see him, and he said, be ready. And I was like, yeah, I'll be ready, MJ. And then they go to the footage and they actually have the clip of MJ on the sidelines, masking his mouth, talking to Steve Kerr. And I'm like, how many hours of footage and different camera angles and takes did you have to go through before you found the exact thing that Steve Kerr was talking about? And there were so many examples of it. Like the clip of Jordan at the Olympics driving to the gold medal ceremony and going like, yeah, they think that I can't cover it. They're in for a fucking surprise here. And like, how did you have that clip? Like it's unbelievable, the footage that they had and the story that it enabled them to have. Like the what really got me was when they had the footage of Rodman coming back to Bulls camp coming back to practice after he had been on Nitro. And Michael Jordan kept going, Rodzilla! And I was like, he's making fun of him for his wrestling name.
It was funny. I had no idea that happened like during the finals. Like,
yeah. I think if I remember the story right, Eric Bischoff, because it was like they were leading to, I think that's when they were leading to the Rodman, Hogan, Malone, DDP tag team match. And I think if I remember right, Eric Bischoff was kind of hinting to Rodman and Malone that maybe, you know, if they want to trash talk and get physical on the court, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in their world for their WCW pay-per-view. And it's like, it's the NBA Finals. Like, what are you doing?
It's crazy.
So good.
So I guess we'll skip to the wrestling podcast. You've been doing it for about 6 years now, and you're right on the cusp of 300 episodes. Like, how does that feel, man? Like, does it feel like it's been that many?
No, it's pretty nuts. It's funny. It feels like it's always been around, and it also still kind of feels like it's a new project. Like, you know, I remember. It's so funny with these wrestling podcasts because now it's just a given. Like, now there's so many wrestling podcasts. But like 6 years ago, I mean, even 6 years ago, people were telling me that I was late to the game because, like, Colt Cabana, yeah, when I did it, Colt Cabana really had it on lock. Like, Colt Cabana was the guy that I looked at and said, a wrestling podcast can work. But, I mean, I remember before I did the wrestling podcast, going to Sirius, the guy who was, like, running the channel at the time, and going like, hey, I have this idea. Like, what if on the weekend I did a show, like a wrestling show for the channel where I interviewed a wrestler or something? And I'll never forget. He was like, well, I don't know if you can't do like a whole show about wrestling. And I was like, oh, maybe you're right. And I was like, why did I tell him he's wrong? You're definitely wrong. Of course you could do. And then you look at Sirius, by the way, and like their #1 sports show is busted open. Like it's killing everything. Like their streams are outrageously good. Their YouTube's outrageously good. Like everything they touch is gold right now. And I'm like,
but there's not a place for it in radio, apparently.
Yeah, right. Like every podcast is a wrestling podcast now. So it has been really interesting to watch the wrestling podcast world change and evolve and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was really one of those things where I was uploading wrestling interviews to my YouTube channel when I got them, you know, in frequently enough, but not in any kind of regular intervals of time. And I was like, man, you know, I think these days I'm getting enough wrestling interviews that I could probably pull one off once a week. And I just kind of wanted to have a vehicle, and I didn't have I don't remember what form of a radio show I had at the time, but it was probably like once a week or something like that. Like it wasn't every day. So I didn't have the ability to talk to wrestling fans about wrestling, like do a show for wrestling fans, just about wrestling, where you don't have to justify anything. You just do this thing. And I was like, well, again, I mean, it goes back to the internet and being able to create stuff. And I was like, well, let me just do this. Let me just do a wrestling podcast. And, I started it, and it picked up steam pretty quickly. I was really happy with it. And I think it changed a lot for me. I think that was one of the things, the YouTube had done well. And a lot of the YouTube interviews had done well, but having a specific wrestling show made it so that wrestling fans could be like, either I like or don't like Sam Roberts based on the show. This is his wrestling show, and I can make my judgment on that.
And I mean, you've had so many different folks on there that you've interviewed. One that always sticks out in my mind. It was a fairly short interview. I think it was during like SummerSlam weekend or something. That time you interviewed Brock Lesnar, and because you asked him, you gave him your catchphrase, "What's the haps?" and he just like looked at you like, are you serious?
Yeah, I love that interview. Yeah, because it was like, so it was a 2K party. It was for 2K, whatever year that was. Yeah, and I was there with my wife, and like, I was just at the point where usually, like, up until literally that party, everyone that I ever went to, I had like, and my wife would be my camera operator for half of them, and it would be like we'd bring a tripod and a camera, and we'd run around and get every single possible interview that we could ever get, and like talk to everybody and do everything. And I was just getting to the point where I was like, look, I don't know how much there is to gain from still doing that. Why don't we just go? Not that I'm not going to interview people anymore, but like, we've talked to a lot of people before, and like, we've done it. So why don't we just go to the party? Like, why don't we just go to the party? We could say hello to people. It might be good to see the people that we interview and just say hi to them and maybe make a personal connection. Okay, let's do that. And we get there, and then there's this empty area. And I was like, oh, yeah, who's going to be over there? And they're like, Brock's coming. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, is he doing one-on-ones? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. What? And I was like, okay. And I'm sitting there with Jess. I'm like, Jess, Brock doesn't do interviews. I'm like, what are we going to do? And then I looked at her, and I was like, wait. And I thought back. I had done this once before for an emergency interview, and it was with the Ultimate Warrior. And I was like, Jess, you got your phone on you, right? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, here's what we need to do. I'm going to take your phone, and I'm going to use the voice recorder on it. And then I need you to take my phone, and that'll be our video camera. And she was like, that's brilliant. I was like, all right, let's do it. We got online, and we did it. And then Paul Heyman was there, and he was like, okay, you got 2 questions, Sam, 2. So you better make them good. And like, Paul knew what perhaps, like, he already knew that. So I hoped in his head that he knew what I was going to do, but I don't know. But I love his face when I actually was like, okay, 2 questions. Question number 1, what's the haps? Brock just looked at me like, the amount I've done in my life, like, I've gotten myself into the type of shape where I never need to deal with a person asking me, what's the haps? You got to be kidding. And so, yeah, so I love that. And then I went home and like edited the video immediately and got it up online immediately. And like, people picked up on it right away. And it was SummerSlam weekend. You're right. Because I think that was Friday night. And then Saturday, I kind of got it out everywhere. And then Sunday, I went to SummerSlam, and I was sitting in the audience, and I was sitting up close. And Mick Foley came out, and that was the year that he unveiled the Universal Championship, the big red belt.
Oh, boy.
So people boo the belt, and he unveils it and everything. And he sees me, and right after he unveils it, he walks over towards me, and he leans in. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's just going to say, like, oh, I didn't expect that or something like that. And he leans in, and he goes, Sam, that Lesnar interview was tremendous. And he just walks away, and I was like, that's
Perfect.
All. How could I ask for anything else in life?
You mentioned Paul Heyman too, and you're obviously good friends with him now. What's he like?
I mean, Paul's great. Paul, I will always love Paul Heyman because even when he was not working at WWE, Paul Heyman is the first person in wrestling on that level, like the first big name in wrestling he tweeted out my stuff. Like when I was just doing What's the Haps montages at like press conferences, he tweeted out a What's the Haps video out of nowhere. I'd never met him. I worshiped him because I was such a big ECW fan, but I had never met him before. I'm just sitting there. I was at a department store and like, I'm looking at my replies start blowing up and I'm like, what? Uh-oh, am I in trouble? Like what happened? And I realized that Paul Heyman tweeted out this video I had made. This was, so many years ago at this point. And I was like, oh my God. And I told my wife, I was like, I can't believe what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And he just got a kick out of it and tweeted it out. So from that point on, I was like, you've got my loyalty forever, dude. I don't even know if you know what you did. But he's great. He's a genius. He's a complete wrestling genius, a creative genius. And just like little things that I've gotten to do, because I don't really like ask like wrestling fan type questions of people when I'm not interviewing them. It's just not who I am. But like I have with Paul Heyman, just because like little questions will come up to me and we'll be like at a pay-per-view or something, and I'll go like, he'll go, Sam, and he'll nod at me and I go, oh, Paul, do you have a second? And he'll go, yeah, and I'll stop and I'll go, whose idea was it to use the Eagles version of Desperado for Terry Funk's music in ECW? And he's like, and he'll go, I picked all the music for ECW. I'm like, dude, that was so genius. It changed the vibe of everything. It made it my favorite song. It was so, he's like, oh, Bob, like, and it's just like, to just get to pick his mind about that little thing, or I'll go like I remember like right before the first TakeOver War Games or that weekend or whatever, I saw him like backstage for something. I was like, Paul, I was watching a whole bunch of War Games matches prepping for the kickoff. And he was like, oh yeah? I was like, yeah, you know what the best one is? He's like, what one? I was like, 92 Dangerous Alliance. I was like, Medusa climbing up the cage. And then he goes like, yeah, and he goes into a story about it. I was like, this is amazing. But yeah, I mean, he's a genius, Paul Heyman. He's everything that you'd think he'd be. He's a genius.
Yeah, just such an amazing mind for the business, and it's awesome to see him heading Raw now. Like,
yeah.
So, and also with your podcast too, every year, I don't know if you're going to bring it back, but I figured I'd ask anyway, because you had the Summer Sam shows, like the big live shows at Carolyn's. Did you have, obviously, like, with the way things are now, it seems like it won't be likely for a little bit, but do you plan on bringing that back?
I would love to. I love doing them, especially those, because those are, like, the only thing stressful about live shows for me is selling tickets. I hate that part of it. Like, I just get anxiety over it. I just get so stressed out. Mm-hmm. Even though I've never done, all the live events I've done have always, like, everybody's happy with them going out. And I've always had a blast at these shows. And, like, I mean, I always get, like, so blown away that people will come and do them. Like, it's one thing to do a podcast, but when, like, the guests that come and do these shows and sit on stage with me in front of the audience and just, like, I want to create this fantasy thing, and they just come and be a part of it. I'm like, it just blows my mind when they do it. But I would love to. It was a lot easier. Obviously this year I don't think that it's very likely because, I don't know where we'll be by August. But it was easier to do in New York for sure because I have a good relationship with Caroline, so that takes out a step in the process. But I'm sure there are spots in Boston where we could figure something out.
That'd be awesome.
I don't think I didn't do one last year because I think SummerSlam was in Toronto, if I'm correct.
Yes,
so,
I think it was.
Yeah. So I didn't do one because I didn't know anybody in Toronto. It's international, and there was enough going on that I didn't want to add anything to the plate. But a city like Boston, I feel like, would be a really good spot to do it in if they were able to do it this year or any year in Boston.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I would definitely be there for that too. And you've interned, I guess, with the podcast. Eventually led you to doing some work with WWE. Like, did Triple H call you up, or just someone like one of the higher ups say? Because I'm sure they knew like how much work you were doing with like bringing in folks on your podcast and stuff. How did you eventually get through there, and then because you started off as a panelist, eventually you got to host some stuff like on Talking Smack, and even got a role in commentating too. Like you were just on NXT most recently. Like, yeah, how were you able to get in through there, and how's that experience been like for you?
It's crazy, insane, dream come true, like ridiculous.
The childhood dream, right?
Beyond. Like, what am I doing? Because not only is it like you get to go and do this, but you also just go. They want me to just be myself. Like, just go and give your opinion. Like, there's no, here's what we want you to say, and here's the angle we want you to take, and make sure you do it this way and that way. They're just like, hey, you're Sam Roberts. You have a thing you do that thing. And I'm like, okay, great. Michael Cole called me. And I've known Michael Cole for a little while now. And he called me one day and he said, hey man, I've been for a long time trying to get us to bring on panelists from the outside. And I've always had you in mind for it. And I just think, getting a perspective from somebody that's not, within the company would make the panels more interesting, would make them, fun. And, and I got the okay on it. And, is that something you'd be interested in? I was like, what? Yeah. Yes. Huh? Yup. And so, they brought me in to do one. And they were like, we'll see how it goes. And I did it. And they were like, okay, we'll bring you back. And then they brought me back. And then they brought me back. And they just keep bringing me back. And then, and they've come up with other ideas. Like, and it's always just that same phone call. The first Talking Smack was, hey man, we're doing a Talking Smack after this pay-per-view. Is that something you'd like to do? I'm like, yes, that's something I'd like to do. Hey, do you think you could do commentary? I'm like, I think I could do commentary. Yes, I would like to try at least. And then the ball gets rolling on that. It's just, yeah. It's one of those things. It's just been amazing.
Mm-hmm. What would you say if they ever offered you like, hey, we actually want to bring you on a commentary full time? Like, what would you say to that?
I'd be like, yes, I'll do that. Obviously I'm not going to, I'm not at the expense of anything. I feel like I do exactly what I did at Syracuse. That's just who I am. I go, yes, we're good. The answer is yes. And then I'd spend the next several hours trying to figure out how I can do a full-time morning radio show and a full-time commentator or whatever schedule, how I can do both jobs at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I'd figure out how to make those hours work in the day and how to do things remotely, do whatever I have to do. And I'd say yes and figure out how to do both and keep it moving.
And doesn't Booker T do that? Because he has his talk show,
yeah.
And when he was doing commentary too, he was basically doing both at the same time for a little bit too.
I believe he was, yeah. And there have been a lot of shows where I've had to do the show the next day from whatever location we're in, or I've had to, when I've been in Orlando, I've done Jim and Sam from the Performance Center a whole bunch of times. And so luckily, technology has come so far. We live in an age where we can do that, where it's not so difficult to be like, yeah, I need to be able to do the show remotely. It's very, very doable. Obviously, it's how every show is done right now. So,
yeah, it's awesome that you were able to do that remote, like from the Performance Center, like you said, be able to call into the radio show and still be able to do that. So if they ever offer you that, then you basically just like make that adjustment.
Just make it happen.
Cool. I mean, you've had countless interviews with so many wrestlers, just interacted with so many of them. But there was one person I was most curious about, who, when you met him for the first time. What was meeting Vince McMahon like, and how many times, like, what kind of guy is he?
I mean, I don't know him, other than cordially. Mm-hmm. Hello, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he is. I don't know if you'd be surprised or not. It's amazing seeing how hands-on he is with everything, and how at this point he still just bleeds this stuff. Like, he still cares on that level. And watching him, even if it's from afar, just watching him, have his kind of hands on everything and put his input into everything. Like after the first time I did commentary on Main Event. And like in my head, I'm like, he probably doesn't even know I'm here. Why would he? He's got 150 other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as I walked out of the desk and he's getting ready to start Raw, he's like, so how'd that go? And I'm like, the fact that you even know that I even did something just now, that I'm not some like, nudnik walking around here is blowing my mind. So, it's awe-inspiring, I'd say. I'd met him a couple of times before in interview scenarios. I've like interviewed him briefly at press conferences, and then a couple of interactions here and there, since being at WWE. But it's awe-inspiring.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing to see him still pushing as hard as he is at his age now. What is he, 76 now, something like that? Like, and he's still like, basically like working behind the curtain. Almost every Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view.
And I mean, hands on, all hands. It's amazing watching it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And what about Triple H? Like I know like a lot of fans, a lot of folks, like they would love to see him, or looking forward to once he like gets like more of a hands-on creative role for like main roster stuff. But like what's he been like, and especially like the way how his interactions with like everyone backstage, either NXT or otherwise.
Dude, I mean, like everybody knows that certain people are geniuses. Everybody knows Vince McMahon's a genius. Everybody knows Paul Heyman's a creative wrestling genius. Like people know Triple H is a genius. Mm-hmm. Like Triple H is on that level. And I don't know, as much as people appreciate him at this point in his career, I don't know if people really know. I mean, dude, you talk about hands-on. He is like talking to everybody. He is a part of everything. He is detail. I mean, from the kickoff show to the show to the talking to the media after the show to everything. I mean, this guy eats, sleeps, and breathes this thing. It is, I mean, it's the most amazing thing to see. Like, and it's so fun because I've known him for a long time. Like there are a handful of guys that met me way back when, like I met Triple H when I was like, barely out of my internship, working for, when he was doing Opie. He would come on Opie and Anthony, and I'd be there kind of, getting him his coffee, and then, O&A would make me do something humiliating in front of him or whatever. And he's kind of been there and watched me grow throughout this time to the point that we've gotten to this place where I'm working for him, and it's like, and it's a wild thing, but I remember like we did an NXT thing and I said something and the audience started booing me, or I was trending on Twitter or something like that. I don't know. I said something everybody hated again, and then I went in and like I went into Gorilla or whatever, and he was like, I tried to tell these guys, if they just let you be the same dick that I've known for the last 15 years, you're going to do just fine. I'm just like, yeah, you get it. You get it.
So what have been your most memorable moments, like working with the company? I assume probably working Wrestlemania. Is there any specific moment that sticks out to you, or any like particular superstar that you've worked along with that is there a certain moment of you there that really stands out?
Well, yeah, I mean, like the 3 WrestleManias all have these huge moments. One of them is like this moment of great triumph. One of them is this moment of, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. And then one of them is a moment of utter, complete failure. So it depends on which angle you want to look at. Like my first WrestleMania there, I've done 3. The first one there was like, this is it. It was one of those moments where it's like, if this all goes away tomorrow, they can never take this away. This happened. This is like blowing my mind. And then that's the one that the Hardy Boys came back for. So I got to go out on the arena floor and experience that reaction and everything. And just everything. And then, I mean, dude. And then this Undertaker documentary comes out. And that was the WrestleMania where the Undertaker had his Roman Reigns match. And you can see as the Undertaker is walking backstage after that match, there's a camera rolling and it's blurry and it's in the background, but I'm like standing there backstage applauding him. And I'm like, Like the fact that that's on camera and that moment, and I'm just like, it's too mind blowing for me. I can't take it. Then a year later, my second WrestleMania, a little more confidence, a little more experience under my belt doing these live WWE shows, and that's the action moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the complete and utter bomb failure, worst case scenario of what could happen on live television.
I don't know if you want to. I mean, I won't have you talk about it if you don't want to, but
of course. I mean, it's a thing that happened. It was just, I got out there and we were live and I got lost and didn't handle it. Like I feel like it has to happen once. Like that, I guarantee will never happen again. Because now I already know now. Like now, whenever there's a camera on, there's 5 plans in my head of where we can go with this. There's no way that it's impossible to get lost now. I know exactly what to do in any scenario possible, and I didn't have that plan going in that night, and I needed it badly because I got lost out there. They were like, okay, just tell them action's on the way. And I was like, action's on the way. And they were like, in my earpiece going, no, say that at the end. And I was like, it was an abysmal failure.
But now you got a shirt out of it.
Yeah, we got a t-shirt out of it. But still, that's the silver lining. And then the next year's WrestleMania was like, I did the entire 2-hour show, the entire 2-hour kickoff show. I stayed at the desk with Jonathan Coachman for the entire 2 hours, which I'd never done that before, especially at a WrestleMania. And the fact that I pulled that off without completely, just crapping the bed, that was like a big deal. So that was like a pretty big high. But yeah, it is interesting that those WrestleManias definitely run the spectrum.
And I know you're a little pressed on time right now. We're kind of getting close to the end, but I just had like one more thing of questions, and then maybe turn it over to everyone in the chat if they had anything particular they want to ask you.
Sure.
So I guess last thing, because we're broadcasting on Twitch right now, and mostly gaming channel, or mostly gaming platform, but we have a variety of other stuff now, podcasts, talk shows, cooking. There's so much variety on here now. But I'm curious because I noticed looking at your IMDb, you actually were in some video games. You voiced a couple characters in GTA games.
Yes.
What was that like, voicing a character in a game?
I mean, it was so much fun. It's just like a regular like townsperson. Like you'd have to search around the game. I remember I had to like ask our friend who was working over at Rockstar at the time, like, where do you think my character would be? Oh, if you go over here in this area, you might find him over there, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's like my favorite game franchise of all time. So it's just to be able to just be, I think like I'm a weird, whiny nerd guy in one of the games. Then in another game, I think I'm in a radio commercial or something.
You're a DJ, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just to be a part of that history is like, it's another just mind-blowing pinch me moment.
Maybe in GTA 6, you'll actually have Jim and Sam in the game.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Are you playing any games nowadays, or like did you have any favorites growing up, or?
Yeah. So I actually kind of am like flirting with the idea of like streaming games is something that I want to try doing. I just don't, it's one of those ideas that I don't have time for. Like I got my PlayStation camera, I got my Yeti mic hooked up to the PlayStation now. Like I'm kind of ready to go. It's just, figuring out the time to actually do it it becomes an undertaking. But
sure.
I started Fortnite this quarantine, like within the last couple weeks, and I'm terrible at it, but I started it just to see what it was like. But in terms of what I actually like play, I still will pick up GTA 5 as like that sort of escapism, stress relief thing. I get all the WWE games, but I didn't end up spending that much time with 2K20. I didn't.
I've heard it's very not good.
Yeah. That's a good description. But I play a lot of PUBG Mobile. I play a lot of PUBG on my phone, and me and a bunch of the guys at work will play together after the show. You know, when we were still in the studio and stuff like that. But yeah, I play that. That's kind of in terms of current games. I play a whole bunch of PUBG Mobile on iPhone.
Cool, man. That's awesome. So I had a lot more questions I want to ask you, but I know you were a little pressed on time, so I just wanted to just pick your brain at as much stuff as I could until then.
Yeah, for sure.
So I really, really appreciate you coming on, man. We've known each other for 4 years now or so. Did some work with you, and just most recently did some new shirt designs, which I can't wait to see pop up on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, over at notsamshirts.com.
Exactly. So you can check out his merch there. You can check him out on YouTube, youtube.com/notsam. He's on SiriusXM with Jim Norton. So I guess from this point, leave it up to the chat right now. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in. And if you do have a question, if you could use the highlight my message with channel points, just so I can make sure I don't miss it. But I'll make sure I don't miss anything. First question up above. Half man, half bear, half pig. My buddy Edgy. He asked, "What are your favorite pay-per-views
Of all time?
Yeah.
Well, I love going back to both SummerSlam 91 and SummerSlam 92 are both incredible. SummerSlam 91 because I think it's like the first pay-per-view that I remember watching the full pay-per-view live as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was watching before then, but that's really and SummerSlam 92 I was there. I was in Wembley Stadium. So that's a great memory. WrestleMania 17 is always a go-to.
Yep. It's always a unanimous, like, everyone's like favorite Mania usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to beat. You know, from the set to the main event to everything. I was actually today. I was just watching Guilty as Charged '98. I've been on a kick of putting on old ECW pay-per-views. I think it was Guilty as Charged '98. I think it was '98. It was the one where Psycho Sid was on as Cronus's mystery opponent. Just seeing Sid in an ECW ring. Like, I remember, I bought every ECW pay-per-view as a kid. So, like, you know, remembering Sid showing up and doing the thing was awesome. So, yeah, those are some of my favorites. I mean, here's the thing about pay-per-views. I like all of them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, it's easy to put Mania 17 up there. I feel like over time, obviously that was like up there for me, but I think Royal Rumble 2001 is like actually like top of my list now. With like every match on that card is just, I don't know. It's always
Royal Rumble 2001 is amazing. Royal Rumble 2000, I hate the Royal Rumble match because of the way it ended. I thought it was just super cheesy. But I don't know if you've seen the Triple H Mick Foley Untold on the network, but it's so good, and you really get a sense of Triple H. Yeah, it's really good. But even before then, like Triple H versus Cactus Jack from Royal Rumble 2000 has always been my favorite, one of my favorite matches. And I really think that the Royal Rumble 99 is good. Like, people hate the Royal Rumble 99 because it's such like a Vince Russo Royal Rumble, but I love the Royal Rumble 99. Like, I love how much stuff is happening in it. I love all the stories. I love the 1999 Royal Rumble match.
Vince just like hanging at commentary like for like the majority of the match and then coming back and winning it to troll everybody.
And then just looking at the ambulance coming in and realize Austin's coming back. And yeah, I love it.
It's so good. We got Modest Millhouse here. I teach high schoolers for a living. So what advice would you give to a kid fresh out of high school who wants to be successful in content creation?
I would say figure out a way that you can sustain your life while you're creating content, at least to start. Because, and then, I mean, like, don't, like, you were asking me earlier about free time. And it's like, this is the free time. Like, what do you mean free time? Like, what are you doing with if you want to be a content creator, there is no free time. Like, that is your free time. That's what you want to do. Yep. Like, that's, like, what do you mean free time? So, I think the idea of having a way that you can, like, live, like, finding some way to make some money, and then using all the other time to create content is the only way to make it work, I believe, because unless you get really, really lucky. I think that a lot more people than are the ones that get lucky end up quitting because they're like, well, I need to make some money. I can't do this. I need to make some money. If you're getting into content creation to make money, like, I don't have any advice for you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not, I know some people do and some people are successful at it, but that's not, that's not what I do. I don't believe in that so much. I think it's more like, if you want to create content for the creation of the content.
Exactly.
And then, as you go and as you get better, you'll be able to figure out a business plan. You'll be able to monetize it. Like, you'll be able to make that your life for sure. But you have to figure out a way to pay the bills. It's like, I wanted to be on the radio, but I needed to find a way to make a living in radio, and then get myself on the air. Because if I could get on the radio but wasn't making any money doing it, eventually you have to quit. Like, that's what happens. You hear that story 100 times. Like, so I think figuring out a way that you can create the content that you want to create and have a sustainable life that you won't need to quit the content creation at any point is step one. And step two is just to create endlessly. Just keep going,
keep pushing. Yeah. I mean, I'm like that too. Like, I'm always looking for something I can improve, something. I mean, that's why I want to start this thing, that's why, just something to keep the creative juices going, just something different.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was like, I wanted to start doing more. Like, if you watch the 90 Day Fiance show that I just put on my YouTube channel, it's an edited, produced show. Because I was like, I used to edit video all the time, and I don't really edit that much video anymore because I do so many live shows. And it's like, but I do radio live, I do the YouTube streaming live. Like, I know how to handle myself live. I need to now get back to honing this other skill that I have that is a valuable skill. So that's why it's like, okay, let me dip back into this world and revisit it for a while so I can freshen up the batteries.
Cool. Question from MyTrav13 here. How surreal was it meeting the wrestlers that you grew up with, or grew up on and working with them?
I mean, it's like, it's unreal. Like, I can't even, like, and I try, because you, like, in the moment, you're not so conscious of it. Like, you're like, just the whole aura is, like, amazing. I go out of my way to try to, as often as I can, think about, okay, what just happened here? Like, who did you just interact with? How would you have felt about that when you were 13, when you were 15, when you were 20, when you were 25, when you were 30? How would you have felt about what just happened? Like, like, really keep the context here, because it's so easy to look at what other people are doing that is something you want to do or you perceive as better than what you're doing or bigger than what you're doing or whatever it is. And it's like, that's a trap, I think, that all of us find ourselves in. But if you can just go, like, dude, I just had this person even say hello to me. Hey, Sam, how's it going? Like, do you know what that would have done to me when I was 20, when I was 15? Like, live in that moment. And I try to do that as often as humanly possible.
For sure. One more question here from Arkrid. What is your favorite The Room meme? The spoons, footballs, oh hi Mark, repetitive establishing shots of the Golden Gate Bridge, etc.
I like when I'm trying to explain The Room to people, I love explaining that there is one sex scene that's played twice as if it's two scenes for no apparent reason. Because that's one of the people go like, what do you mean? I don't understand. Like their brain starts melting. Like, what are you telling me right now? I'm like, no. So it's 2 scenes. No, it's portrayed as 2 scenes. It's technically 1 scene. So it's a flashback. No. It's not a same scene again, as if it wasn't the same. I mean, yeah. So that one really gets me. And then like the behind the scenes stuff, like the fact that my favorite thing, right? He shot the movie on HD video and film at the same time. And I remember I asked him about this in the interview that I did with him. I go, you shot the movie on film and HD? He goes, yes. I go, okay. Obviously in the theaters, you released the film. He goes, yes. I go, okay. But the Blu-ray that you put out? He goes, yeah. I go, it's the film. He goes, yes. I go, well, if you shot in HD, why wouldn't you put out the HD on the Blu-ray? He goes, oh, because film is better. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's a good point. So just like the little things like that, like shooting it in both, which nobody does, because you need separate lighting rigs. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
So still waiting on that 3D cut of the movie that he's talking about. And then I'll leave this as the last question. Don't want to take too much more of your time, but
I don't want to. Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. What is the most challenging aspect about your job?
I think the most challenging aspect is I mean, probably just coming up with more, just the more stuff aspect of it. You know, I sometimes think about like a musician who can maybe, you know, kind of write a song, and I don't mean like a struggling musician, probably more like a famous musician that can write a single and kind of tour on that for a while, or a filmmaker who can make a film and then like take a breather after that. And it's like just the idea of when you're kind of in the content creation and radio game where it's just like, well, we got to do more. Well, what's tomorrow? Probably that is I guess the most challenging. I guess, yeah, is probably, but it's not. Again, it's not anything that I complain about necessarily. I mean, if I didn't want to live like that, I guess I wouldn't. That's probably more of a challenge in my own personality than it is with the job. That, like, I just keep, you know, yeah, but I got to do something else. I got to be doing more, you know.
Yeah, it's like what more can I do to make this even better? That's just always like the mentality for sure.
Yeah, and it's like because if this isn't perfect, it's gonna be because I didn't do this. Like I can't leave any room for. I need to leave knowing that if it doesn't go right, it was out of my control. I did everything I could. And then yeah.
Cool, man. Well, Sam, thank you again so much for coming on episode 3 of the KoppsCast. It seriously means a lot. Like I said, we know each other for a little bit, and it's been awesome to finally like have this like one-on-one interaction outside of like an email or through Twitter or anything. So yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
Well, thanks for having me, man. This was great.
Yeah, and where can we find you on everything?
Not Sam, believe it or not. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Not Sam. NotSam.com. Of course, there's new stuff going up on YouTube all the time at youtube.com/NotSam. And yeah, SiriusXM, WWE, the whole deal.
Cool. Definitely check him out on his channel. Check him out on Jim and Sam. Check him out on iTunes, Spotify.
Oh yeah, Not Sam Wrestling. Yeah.
So we're gonna end this broadcast right here. I'm probably going to, because we're only an hour and a half in, I'm going to end the stream, but then I'm going to come back because I think I'm going to come back and play some more Celeste. But yeah, in the meantime, yeah, cut this off here and just stick around for a little bit, and we'll be right back. But yeah, till next time, we'll catch you later. So, have a good night, everybody.